but we're going to go ahead, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all today. I'm Doe Henschel. My new title at Leadership Greater Hartford, for those of you that have been around for a while, my new title is Leadership Preceptor. I'm often asked what that means, and it just means that I get to do all the fun things that I like to do. And I'm supposed to be working 3/4 time these days, but that doesn't always happen. I'm still pretty much around whenever anybody wants. So welcome, 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 and it's good to see old friends and new friends here with us today for our webinar on You Can Do More That Matters. I imagine many of you have looked for ways and often think about how can I create the life that I desire and deserve, and that's what we're going to learn today. Leadership Greater Hartford seeks to be a catalyst of change and influence, a changer of minds and hearts, a convener of varied perspectives, and a challenger of the status quo. Looks to me like the kind of world that we're in today is made for organizations like Leadership Greater Hartford to do those things. Our visionary sponsors support our work as we develop, connect, and inspire diverse leaders to build strong and vital communities. We invite you to connect with us on social media and let your friends know that you're having lunch with us today. We would really appreciate it if you let them know that you're here, and maybe next time they'll join us as well. A quick reminder that for the sake of clarity and communication, you will be muted throughout the program, but you can send questions and comments throughout the presentation using the chat feature. And then we'll have a Q&A session, and Janelle Lavinier from our office staff is going to be able to gather those questions and present them to Greg for his comments and his responses. You know, we believe that leadership is a lifelong journey. And many of you here are familiar with the Third Age Initiative, our program to help older adults channel their wisdom, knowledge, and experience to strengthen our communities. This was conceptualized by a 1997 Quest task force, and since then the program has been recognized by the United Nations as the premier model, leading to the purposeful engagement of older adults. And thanks to our generous sponsors, we are now enrolling participants in class number 15 that will start on September 16th. If you'd like to know more, sign up for an information session on our website, and I'll present information later about how to do that. Our presenter today is Greg Hammond, who is the CEO of Hammond Isles. And Hammond Isles Wealth Advisors is an Emerald sponsor of the Third Age Initiative, and we're happy to have him with us today. Greg leads a team of professional financial coaches that educate and empower investors to think differently about money and inspire them to design the kind of life they want to live. Greg is the co-author of a wonderful book. I am reading it right now. It's called You Can Do More That Matters. And he's also the co-host of Your Money, Your Purpose, which is a neat radio show and podcast hosted on ESPN, New Radio, WPOP, and iHeartRadio. You may have tuned in on July 4th when Greg and his partner Scott Isles interviewed our retiring President CEO, Ted Carroll, and our new President CEO, Chris Duffy. They talked with Greg and Scott about purposeful living. And then on August 1st, Greg and Scott interviewed me and John Nelson, a graduate of the Third Age Initiative, about how the Third Age Initiative helps older adults get involved and give back to their community. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Greg today and turn the program over to him. Remember, you can post your questions and your comments on chat, and Greg, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Doe. I'm excited to be here with everybody and to share this message and information about how you can do more that matters, and that we look to help you unleash your power to create the life that you desire and deserve. And to start off, just to tell you a little bit about myself, at the age of 8, I grew up in a small town, Jamestown, New York, where I learned to play golf at the age of 8. And through my teenage years, I had the benefit of playing golf with the mayor of my town, the president of the Rotary Club, a successful businessman, a town councilman, and the treasurer of my church, or as I refer to all those gentlemen, as my dad. And he is one of the main reasons why I'm here in front of you today. And through his example, he showed me the power of giving back to the community in which we live. And so as we consider what we can do more that matters, we're going to talk a little bit about today about the challenges that we face that get in the way of making a greater impact. Also, we're going to talk about the 3 dimensions of wealth. You may not be aware of the fact that there are 3 dimensions of wealth, and that your wealth may be greater than you think it is. And lastly, we're going to talk about some exercises and next steps that you can do on pursuing a more purposeful life. Because over the last 20 plus years as a financial coach, I've worked with individuals just like yourself to help create clear paths to more purposeful living. Now, as I made the transition, I got my start in accounting. I'm a recovering CPA, and when I made the transition to being a financial coach, I noticed that there were things that kind of disturbed me a little bit about the current financial industry, that there were some shortcomings in the way that people planned, that many people plan around the numbers, and that's all that they're looking at. And there are things that I wanted to encourage people to do, and that's to dream more, plan better, and to take action. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is that all too often we do not take the time to dream more. And as a result of that, kind of like Derek Sivers says in his book, that many times we may find ourselves at the end of our lives with regret, that we spent our one chance at life spending our time on little distractions rather than big dreams. But the challenge is that we don't take time to really stop, think, and dream about what those dreams might be. And that we allow our lives to just kind of unfold in front of us. The days go by, and certainly over the last few months, that is truly the case, as we've had our challenges with the self-quarantining and protections from the pandemic. And that many times the days just go on and on without taking the time to stop and think about the direction that we want to go. It's a surprising statistic that many people actually spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do planning their lives. And we're hoping to change that today through what we're about to share with you, because it's important that we take that time to stop, think, and dream. Now, one of the things as we start to dream, and often this happens at the beginning of the year, is many of us dream and look ahead at the future year by setting a New Year's resolution. And if you set a New Year's resolution, can you just raise your hand and show me on the screen? Anybody take that effort, make the effort on sharing a resolution? And how many of you still, if you hold your hand up, still remain committed to that New Year's resolution? Anyone? Well, the truth of the matter is that New Year's resolutions don't work. And that actually 1 out of 4 people, 25% of us abandon our New Year's resolutions within 1 week, and 60% in 6 months. And of those of us that are dedicated to possibly lose a little weight or get a little healthier, only 5% are successful. 95% actually regain any lost weight, and many gain back more than what they lost. And a surprising statistic, even after a health issue as serious as a heart attack, only 14% change the way that they eat. So why is it that many of us do not honor those goals and things that we want to accomplish in our life? Well, I believe it's because we don't have a powerful enough why. And Darren Hardy, in his book, The Compound Effect, talks about the power of a why. And I have behind me, I don't know if you can see it, my plank about what is your why. If I were presenting to you in person, I would most likely have it in front of me. And what Darren talks about in his book is that if I were to take that plank and lay it out on the floor and offer you $20 to walk across that plank, I'm guessing that most of you would probably take me up on that offer. It's an easy $20. I'm just going to walk across that plank on the floor. However, if I change the circumstances, if I take that same wooden plank and take it to the top of 2 tall buildings in Hartford, and then ask you to walk across more than 10 stories up from the ground, probably many of you would have a second thought about doing that, especially for only $20. However, if I change the circumstances again, that the building on the other side of the plank is on fire and your children or grandchildren are in that building, many of you would hop up and walk across that plank quickly, no matter how much I was offering to you. And that's just an example about the power of a why. When we have something as powerful as our family or things that we truly care about, that why becomes extremely powerful in motivating us to take action. So when we ask the question then is, what is your why? I'm not sure if you have spent any time thinking about that. I know that you may have found yourself, especially over the last few months, as we have a little bit more downtime in our own homes and in our apartments or wherever we're living these days, is that we may start to contemplate, what are we here for? Are we accomplishing? Should we pivot and do something differently? Are we really making a difference? And so we may question that, is what is our why? Well, the key question and comes from that is, as soon as we know what our why is and it gets powerful enough, the how to make it happen becomes easy. But we just need to have the ability to take some time to really delve into what is that why, or what is the purpose. And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time at Hammond focusing on with our clients, is discovering their true purpose for their money and potentially their life. But when we think about money, is this truly all there is to your wealth? Is it just your balance sheet or your bank statement, your investment statements? And we would say no, that we believe that there are 3 dimensions to your life and legacy and 3 dimensions to your wealth. Yes, financial is part of it, but we also have a personal dimension and a social dimension to our wealth. And so it's the combination of these 3 dimensions of wealth that really make a powerful plan and can give us that motivation to take action. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about all 3 of these 3 dimensions of wealth. The first, obviously, as I mentioned, is the financial. And we all have dreams, and many of those dreams require some form of financial success, whether it's envisioning the retirement that we hope to have, or whether it is the things that we want to accomplish with those funds, whether it's helping family members with education or traveling, many different dreams that we have out there. And that's one of the reasons why the financial dimension can't be ignored. And it's one of the reasons why we created a workshop titled Invested with Purpose. Because most people, when it comes to their investments and money, is that we follow the culture and what Wall Street puts out to us through the media, that there's always a need for more. We need to work harder. We need to save more. We got to try to pick the next wonderful stock that's going to make us rich. But the truth is that before we start down that path, we really need to step back and determine what is our purpose for our money. And then how can we align our investing and the way that we go about investing to support that purpose. And that's one of the 2 main focuses of our workshop, Invested with Purpose, that I'll share a little bit with you a little bit later. So once we get past that financial dimension, as I mentioned, there's 2 other dimensions. The second is the personal dimension. It's the aspect of our life. It's our health, our well-being, our mental health. It's the relationships in our life. It's our spiritual beliefs and foundation that we have, as well as life's experiences. And many times as we have conversations with individuals around the personal dimension of wealth, that which enriches our lives, that gives us motivation, inspiration, and energy, we ask the question, if I had more time or money, I would fill in the blank. Because many times when it comes to thinking and dreaming, we put limitations. If only I had this much more money, then I would do something. Or if only I had more time, I would do this, this, and this. But if we waved our magic wand and those items were of no restrictions, if you had more time and money and it was not a problem, you would what? Fill in the blank. And I encourage you to jot down some ideas in response to that question. And what I find from the answers of those questions is that they tend to fall into two categories, what I call dreams and life prints. Dreams are those things that we dream about that we've never given ourselves the permission to do. And yet we many times have the capability, it may not be at the level that we want it to be, but we have the capability of doing a lot of those dreams. And as for those life prints, it's kind of like your fingerprint. What is the lasting imprint or legacy that you want to live? If someone wanted to come into my office and determine whether I had been here, they might take my water bottle and dust it for my fingerprints as a lasting impact. Well, our life prints are the things that we do and experiences that we have that will leave a lasting legacy beyond us. And here are just a few pictures of some life prints that I've left behind. In the top left is a picture of me working on a mission trip where I went down to D'Iberville, Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina to do some repairs on homes at that point. And on the right-hand side, back when I had a little bit more hair, I was advisor to a youth group at my church, and we went down into Mexico and built a cinder block home during a week that the family there helped build, and took them from the small settings that they had to a room that was 10 by 20. Still small by US standards, but a tremendous impact on the quality of their life. And it doesn't have to be through charity or helping others. It can also be impacting those that you care about. The picture in the center there is on the cross-country trip that I took with my wife and two daughters back in 2012. And this picture was taken in Cawker City, Kansas, in front of the world's biggest ball of twine. You know, it's funny, after going to the national parks and seeing all the amazing things in the United States on that trip, this ended up being probably one of the most talked about pictures and experiences that we had. We actually called the woman who moderates and takes care of the biggest ball of twine, and she actually met us there, and we were able to add to it while we were there. So it's creating life experiences and impacts on the people that we care about. And you know, that's experience that my daughters will remember for the rest of their lives. And so what are some of the life prints that you have? I'm sure as I've talked about some of my experiences, you have pictures that come up in your mind of things that you've done and people that you have impacted. So we want to think about, in that personal dimension, what are some of the lasting impacts that we want to have? And the third dimension of wealth is what we call the social dimension. Now, all of us, whether you make donations to charity or not, you are a philanthropist. And the question is whether you're a deliberate philanthropist or just a taxpayer, because we all support those in need through the taxes that we pay. We also make a difference through the organizations that we support, not only with our financial donations, but also with our sharing of our time. And there are a tremendous other numerous ways that we can impact the social dimension of our wealth, whether it's standing up for social justice, whether it is taking a stand and participating in an organized demonstration to make change in a world that most desperately needs it. And the amazing thing about this process is that a lot of times that personal and social dimension of wealth does not require money. It can just take your time. It may be writing an email or sending a letter to someone. So a lot of times you have more wealth than you may think you have. And so we encourage you to think about those three dimensions of wealth as you think about the why. Now, as we start the process of thinking about that why, of what is our purpose, one of the things that is helpful is to think about the end result. If we get into our car and we use our GPS system, either on our phone or as part of our car, the first thing that we put in is our destination. And so it's important for us to do the same with our lives, of thinking about the destination. And one of the ways that we can do that is thinking about, what does a successful life look like? What would I need to accomplish or do or experience or impact others to consider my life a success? Because by planning that final destination, then we can create that clear path to leading a purposeful life to get there. But if we don't define what success looks like, how are we going to know if we ever get there? You know, one of my favorite quotes is in Alice in Wonderland, when she comes to a fork in the road and she's looking at the Cheshire Cat, trying to look for some direction of which way do I go. And he says, well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that's true about life. If we don't determine what a successful life or what our why or purpose is, any road will get us there and will just unfold in front of us. Now, one person who had the opportunity to do that was this gentleman who, through circumstances, woke up one morning, opened the newspaper, and there before him was his own obituary. As it turned out, it was his brother that passed away, but the newspaper ran his obituary. And what he read across the title of his obituary was, "The Merchant of Death has died." You see, this gentleman invented dynamite, and his obituary in the newspaper went on to talk about the fact that he created a way to kill more people than ever before in history. And he took that as a turning point, that is not the end that he wanted to write of his story. That's not how he wanted to be remembered. And so Alfred Nobel, from that point forward, changed the direction of his life. He left the majority of his wealth to fund the Nobel Awards, one of which is the Nobel Award for Peace in the world. And so by creating an end in mind, he created the path to get there. And so as you think about yourself, your life, how do you want to be remembered? You know, there's a wonderful exercise in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it walks through on actually arriving at a funeral home, which turns out to be your own funeral. And as you sit down, you're handed a program and see that 4 people are going to speak that day. One of which is a family member, another which is a close friend, a third is a business person or colleague, and the fourth is a member of a community that you belong, either through faith or a community organization. And so as you think about those 4 speakers that could potentially be speaking at your funeral, what would you want them to say about you? So we can start the process of thinking about, what do we want to leave behind? How do we want to be remembered? And that can be a powerful way to look at our purpose. Now, in my book, You Can Do More That Matters, we do share a number of different exercises to determine your purpose and encourage you to do more that matters. And one of them is what we call the newspaper review. So if you get one of those big, thick weekend newspapers and you sit down on a Sunday morning with your cup of tea or a cup of coffee or your favorite drink, pull out 3 different highlighters or colored pens and take the newspaper, and I encourage you to go through it, and the first time through, take the first color and circle everything that makes you sad. Take a look at the stories or just the headlines and circle the things that make you sad. And then pick up the second color and take a look and read through it and take a look at everything that makes you angry. And then the last time, take the third color, go through and circle all the things that make you happy or give you joy. And as you finish that exercise, take a piece of paper and divide it in half. And on one side, write down all of the headlines or topics that you circled that make you sad or angry. And on the other side, list the things that make you happy and joyful. And that will provide a clearer picture of some issues or organizations that you feel called to. Because as we look at what we're called to do, what our purpose is in life, 2 of the most important emotions is love and hate. And they are 2 sides of a coin. And that I can love children, but I hate that there are children that go to bed hungry every night. I can love people and the diversity in my neighborhood, but I hate that there are those that are using that diversity against other people. I love my dad, but I hate the cancer that took his life. So by looking at these things that draw those emotions of love and hate, it can provide some clarity of where we really feel called or pulled to make a difference. So all of these things can lead to us to really take a look at why. And it's important that as we get clarity around our why, that we then take the next step is to make better plans. We need to line that up and take action, which is the next step. Because all of it is important, because everything matters. Not just to you, not just to your family, but to all of us. Everybody on this workshop, everybody in the Hartford area, everywhere in Connecticut, it all impacts. And one of the things I like to talk about frequently is the butterfly effect. And you may not be familiar with it, but it was a doctoral thesis written back in the 1960s, 1963 to be exact, by a gentleman named Edward Lorenz. And he wrote that a butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the world, causing air molecules to move, which cause other air molecules to move, which could potentially create a hurricane on the other side of the world. And, you know, a lot of people thought that is just a lot of phooey. You know, that I can't imagine that happens. But, you know, it was interesting. And it was interesting that it hung around until the 1990s when physicists could actually do the math and prove it true. And it is now an actual law, kind of like the law of gravity. It is the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. And so it is known as a law, and it not only applies to butterflies and air, but it applies to people. And I talk about this at the very beginning of my book about the impact that people can have. And that when we look at one example of the fact that a series of events may have saved the lives of 2 billion people. And that one couple in Missouri that saved the life of a child and raised that child to go on to study botany. You've heard of him, George Washington Carver, who, while he was a student at Iowa State University, then tutored a little 6-year-old boy about the importance of plants and biology. And that 6-year-old boy, Henry Wallace, became the Vice President of the United States, who, in the power of his position, created a station in New Mexico to study the hybridization of corn. And he hired a gentleman, Norman Borlaug, that went on to determine and create a version of wheat that can be grown in arid climates that has now been proven to save the lives of 2 billion people. And so that one couple, by taking one action, raising a child in need, ended up being the lives of 2 billion people. Now, you may be saying, well, I'm not going to save 2 billion people. But the thing is the actions in our lives, whether we take them or don't take them, have rippling effects that we may not see for generations, because everything we do matters. And so I encourage you to look at taking the next step. And there are a couple of opportunities that you have in front of you around these the 3 dimensions of wealth. The first that I wanted to mention is that workshop that I talked about briefly earlier, that is titled Invested with Purpose. It's about creating the future you imagine so you can feel confident about your money and worry less. This workshop has 2 primary purposes. It's discovering your true purpose for money, that which is more important than money itself, and then making you aware of the 2 worlds of investing, that there is a world that we're all kind of caught up in right now with the financial media and Wall Street that requires a prediction of the future. But did you know that there's a second world that is based on science, that you can engineer a portfolio to be able to manage the level of risk you want to have and achieve your goals? And we go over that through our workshop and empower you to have the knowledge to make that decision on where you'd like to line up and align your wealth with your purpose. And if you're interested, it'll be coming up in September. It's 2 mornings on September 10th and 11th for a little over 3 hours, from 8:30 to 11:45, those 2 mornings. And you can find more information or register for that workshop at our website, hiwealth.com. Now, one of the other opportunities that is also before you is from Leadership Greater Hartford and the tremendous programs that they have. And specifically, there is the Third Age Initiative. Many people may say, well, I'm past my prime, or I am at a stage in life where I don't know if I really have something to offer. But the truth is you have 3 dimensions of wealth, one of which is your own personal experiences and knowledge that nobody else on earth has but you. And so I encourage you to take a look at those 3 dimensions of wealth and how you can do more that matters.
Very, very interesting, Greg. Thank you so much. We invite you to send some questions into our chat box, comments, questions, observations. Let's have a bit of a conversation here. And I would start it off by sharing with you, Greg, the idea, or expanding a bit on the idea that you've shared with us about the butterfly effect. We use a film at Leadership Greater Hartford called I Am, that asks the question, what's wrong with the world and what can I do about it? And one of the things that comes out of it is how important what each of us does is to the other people. Desmond Tutu says, you may not be able to solve world poverty and hunger, but you can feed this man. And he shows a man who is hungry on the street, and the protagonist, if you will, of this true story that is filmed, is giving him some money. You may not be able to solve poverty, but you can help this man, and how important that is. I love your idea of going through the newspaper to find out what is motivating you. Janelle, have we got any questions that have come in from the audience?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, everybody. How about sharing your experiences? Greg, the Nobel Prize thing fascinated me. I did not know that story about Mr. Nobel.
Well, I think it's a fascinating thing, and in that a lot of times we struggle with that. And fortunately, he had the opportunity to kind of like the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, and kind of being able to see what the future held in front of him to be able to make a change.
Yeah.
Most of us probably don't need to make that big of a change, but we can certainly take some time to stop, think, and dream about what is it that we really want people to remember us by, and what is some of the impact that we want to have.
You know, I kind of think that's sort of what's happening to our country and even our world today. The pandemic and the concurrent I don't know the word I want, the concurrent glare of the spotlight on social injustice and systemic racism that we can't push aside. We're all recognizing things going on, causes you to sit up and say, what can I do about this? What do I need to do differently? Maybe I've gone on in my own life, you know, putting time into planning vacation, but not thinking about how I can make a real difference in the world. I wonder how real this is for so many of us today, saying we need to make a change and do something different. Do you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we see are problems that are so large that we wonder whether just ourselves as one person can really make a difference. But yet I love the quote from Margaret Mead that talks about the fact that making change always starts with one person. It's it's the way it's always been and always will be. And I think we, especially in the current circumstances, may feel isolated and precluded from getting out to do something. But there are a number of things that we can do, no matter our circumstances.
Greg, do you have to have a lot of money to work with a financial advisor to figure out how you can use your wealth? Do you have to be rich in order before you start thinking about those kinds of things?
Well, you know, that's a common misconception that I need to be the next Bill Gates or Warren Buffett before I can, you know, start a foundation or make a dramatic impact. And the key, especially with our firm, is that there are no minimums on making an impact. Everyone can have access to a financial coach, and it's one of the reasons why our Invested with Purpose workshop, there is no cost, because we feel so passionate about the information and helping anyone, and that no matter your income, net worth, you can make a difference. And it's powerful to think about those three dimensions of wealth, that you have the ability to make a personal or social impact, no matter.
Janelle, I think there's some more questions that are coming in. You want to read a couple of them?
Yes, this one is from Peter from Copper Beach. He said, "Thank you, Greg. I am a recovering financial advisor and may have stayed with it if I know about Hammond and Isles. Anyway, I'm curious how you work with change and holding the paradox of taking the time to plan and then adjusting as to what we care about changing and evolving."
Wow, there's a lot to that
Yes.
question. Um, so I, any good plan has to be flexible. But the key, and I think what makes Hammond a little different than other firms, is that we start with purpose. And that when you focus on purpose as your North Star and the destination that we want to go to, we know that there are going to be obstacles. It's just, I kind of refer to us as your financial GPS. We know that there are going to be obstacles, there's going to be roads closed, there's going to be construction, and we just reroute around them. But as long as we have that destination or purpose in focus, then we have a path to create to get us there. And the rest just becomes circumstances that we have to deal with and plan around.
Okay. This one is for Dell. Can you please say more about the Third Age Initiative?
Oh, I'm going to.
Now.
I'm going to. Hang on. That's coming. But I do want to finish the questions for Greg. I see one about finding purpose in this challenging time with social isolation, Greg. That gets in the way. We find there's a lot of people who have been engaged and who have been involved are finding barriers. Do you have any thoughts about how to pursue your purpose when you can't even get together with people or go to meetings or be a volunteer?
Sure. So, one of the first exercises that we go through at our workshop is discovering your true purpose for money. And so let me give you an example. You may determine that your true purpose for money and potential in your life is your family, that you care tremendously about your family. But yet at this point in time, it's very difficult to do things with family, to see family, to give them a hug. But yet I still have the ability to set up a family Zoom meeting. One of the things that has kind of come out of this current pandemic circumstances is I know my family has had more communication and with our relatives that we have in California and across the country because of the technology that's now available to us. Or it may be as simple as just taking a pen to paper. There are less and less opportunities for really good mail, and I think anytime we would see a handwritten note or letter in the mailbox, we all would be excited about that. So there are things like that that we can focus on once we determine what that purpose is let's take a look at, well, what are some things around that purpose that we can do no matter the circumstances. I actually did in the month of April 30 days of impact in talking about one idea a day on Instagram on talking about one thing that you could do to impact the lives of others while in the current circumstances. So there are ways, but the first step is finding that purpose.
I am reminded as we come close to winding up here, I am reminded of a powerful speaker who I heard in 1977. His name is Robert Bundy. He was a futurist and a philosopher. And he said, we all have a work to do in life that cannot be done in less than a lifetime. And then he went on to say, not very many of us get paid to do that. I'm not talking about your job. I'm talking about your work to do in life. And I think that's what you're talking about when you speak about purpose. And if you know your purpose, your job is the way you pay your bills and exist so that you can then pursue the purpose. And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We have one more question.
Yeah.
In these difficult times, the default position is to focus on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, clothing, shelter, and to consider the top parts of the pyramid as luxurious. Your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely, especially when it comes to that financial dimension of wealth. It's kind of like boarding a plane. when they give you the instructions of the fact that you need to put on your own oxygen mask before you can help others. And certainly when it comes to the financial dimension of wealth, certainly the first priority is to lead the lifestyle and have the retirement that you desire. So those lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of need certainly applies in that respect, that you need to have the comfort of knowing that those levels will be taken care of before you can then reach others. But that being said, certainly there are non-financial ways of impacting the lives of others. We all have time. We all have the ability to share a kind word. We all have the ability to listen to others and give them a sense that they matter. So we all have tremendous wealth that we can share.
Greg, thank you so much. That's such an important closing statement. We all have wealth to share, and it's not measured just by what's in our bank account. And when you can find ways to give of yourself through your relationships and your social connections, it makes all the difference in the world. I'd like to go on to the next slide. Can we get the next slide, Karishma? There we go. We're coming back to these. Thank you, Greg. You really do model the way for helping all of us to understand and appreciate more what we have to offer the world and finding our purpose. And that, of course, is exactly what the Third Age Initiative is all about. There was a question for me to speak a little bit more, and I will briefly share with you that this is a program that really follows nicely, and part of the reason we've enjoyed partnering with Hammond so much is that their purpose is so connected to ours. The research is very clear that meaningful, purposeful living is going to add years to your life. I call it preventive medicine. Giving back to the community is preventive medicine. And the Third Age Initiative has been in existence since the year 2001. I retired from higher education and joined the staff of Leadership Greater Hartford with the challenge that I was challenged to begin this program, develop the curriculum. What you see here on the screen is a recent reunion we had of people from 2001 who were in those first classes. And I believe Fred and Pat Swan, who are down there in the lower right-hand corner, are with us today. We really believe that older adults can find ways to contribute their wisdom and their talent and their time. And when they do, it's a win-win-win. We know that they're going to be enriched personally. They're going to be healthy. They're going to live longer because they have a reason to get up in the morning and not focus on what doesn't feel right or what they've lost in their life. We do. We lose friends. We lose family. We lose the meaning that we had in our lives that's connected to our work. And if that's what we focus on, we're going to shrivel up. Instead, we give back, and holy cow, the community wins also. It really is a value and a gift to the community that's immeasurable. There are a number of Third Age Initiative alumni with us today, as I mentioned, and we are holding information sessions over the next couple of weeks to form the next class of the Third Age Initiative. We'll have one on Friday of this week, Monday and Tuesday of next week. The class will have probably about 25 people from all over the region. Any given class has usually people from 10 to 15 different towns and communities. They come together to learn more about who they are, what their gifts are, what they have to contribute, how they can identify their the ways in which they can give back in things that matter to them. The class will divide up into teams, and each team will find an issue they care about and will develop a project where they can have an impact on the community. So we do invite you to find out more. Check out the website. There's a lot of information on the website, testimonials from people. The podcast that we did with Greg and Scott a couple of weeks ago is actually now embedded in the website, so you can listen to that. And then sign up for an information session or refer your friends. Those of you that are not retired, this is a program really designed for retirees. If you have friends, send them our way. It will be offered on Zoom. We have learned Zoom. We have provided training programs, training workshops for people to get comfortable with Zoom. Until it's safe for us to gather together, we're going to do this virtually. When it is safe for us to gather, we will do that. We want to thank our Third Age Initiative sponsors. As I mentioned, Hammond is one of our sponsors, or our Emerald sponsor. And as a result of their sponsorship, there is no tuition for the program. It is free to enable you to find the way that you can give back to the community. And if you are thinking about looking for other ways to give back, I encourage you to think about Leaders on Board. This is a program Leadership Greater Hartford has been holding for almost 10 years. We provide training and orientation to what's expected of members of the boards of nonprofit organizations. And in these years, we have helped 790 people join the boards of 150 nonprofits. I guarantee you, when you define your purpose, when you finish that newspaper exercise, I love that exercise. We're going to do that in some of our classes, Greg. Do that exercise to find out what's really motivating you. What do you get inspired to work on because it brings you joy or helps you feel like you're making a difference in those things that make you angry or sad? I guarantee you there's at least one and probably more nonprofits in the area that are doing that kind of work that you can connect to and get involved with. There, again, is no cost to individuals to get connected to Leaders on Board. So please check out our website and sign up now for an orientation session and become part of our Leaders on Board network. We want to thank you for coming today. Take a break in your otherwise hot day and in this time of upheaval and chaos and concern. I hope you're finding hope. I hope you're finding ways to be optimistic and finding ways to put your gifts and talent and wisdom and time to make a difference. You have the power that is in you. We talk about the power of one. That's yours. Thanks for coming today. We hope to see you again soon at another Leadership Greater Hartford program. And thank you again, Greg, from Hammond Wealth Advisors. You've helped me discover more of what I have that is considered wealth. Have a nice day.
Pleasure.